Kia ora e te whānau, and welcome to the New Zealand Institute of Building Industry Insights. Today is a very special Industry Insights because we have the launch of a collaborative piece of work to provide guidance for consultant project managers. Ko Pamela Bell toka ingoa. I'm Pamela Bell. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at the New Zealand Institute of Building, and I'm very pleased today to be with Sylvia Maclaren and Sonia Muir to introduce this project to you. Now, just to give you a bit of backstory, we have got, I believe, over 100 people online today for this launch, which is fantastic, and we'll be really interested in your engagement going forward. We'll tell you a little bit more about how you can do that. We'll provide you with a link in a moment to where you can find the document so you can follow along with us. We will be sharing it on the screen. And also, I just wanted to acknowledge that this has been a collaboration between the Project Management Institute of New Zealand and the New Zealand Institute of Building, the key people of which have been Sonia Muir and Sylvia Maclaren, who are here today, also Donna Howe, Jonathan Laird, and very much supported by our chairs at the Institute of Building, that's John Hemme, and at the Project Management Institute, that's Nicola Faithful. Now, over to you two wonderful people. Sylvia, if you could please introduce yourself, and then Sonia.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Sylvia Maclaren. I'm the Managing Director of Storm Environmental and have been for the last 9 years. I'm also on the board of PMI New Zealand, and I'm the founder of our Construction Special Interest Group. I am also an experienced client-side program manager, so I really know what I'm talking about.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Sonia Muir. I'm currently the lead group design manager for Nail Love, which is a mouthful, but prior to joining here about 3 years ago, I have a 25-year career as a client-side PM or an internal client PM. So again, know a bit about what I'm talking about. I'm the ex-deputy chair of the NZIOB and also an ex-chapter chair of the Nail Week for Canterbury. So yeah, both been in the industry for a while and doing our thing.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And what we will do now is just show folks where you can find the document. So if you go to the nziob.org.nz website, you can select the resources tab, and because it's the most recent thing we've loaded, you can see it right there up front. Otherwise, you can search or filter by reports, and it will be the first thing that comes up. So that's, if you click on that, you'll be able to download the file and read a little bit about how we started it and download the file there. So feel free to have it open on another screen or another tab and follow with us as we discuss this interesting piece of guidance. Now, I understand we've drawn on a lot of global and local precedents in order to bring you this version for Aotearoa New Zealand. Sylvia, first off, can you tell us about why this document was created? What was the problem to solve?
Thanks, Pam, I will. To address it really succinctly, it was to address a problem that project management roles are poorly defined. But if we take it back a bit further to the history of project management, engineers and architects have been around for a very long time. In fact, I would suggest that an architect was probably involved in the pyramids and an engineer was probably involved in the Roman aqueducts. But project managers, professional project managers, much more recent. It's more like the 1950s. The organisation that I belong to, PMI, we're the biggest project management institute globally, and there's about 750,000 of us. But we were only started in 1969. And in fact, the certification that we hold, PMP, was 40 on Saturday. So really recent. So there's some teething pains with project managers coming in as a profession. And this was coming far further forward. This was identified very well in the 2021 Construction Productivity Group Report, which I believe a number of NZIOB members were involved in and is available on the NZIOB website. I'd recommend reading it. It's great reading if you're interested in construction productivity, which you should be. And that had 11 construction practitioners listing out a whole bunch of the problems we've got in New Zealand with construction productivity. And I don't know if I should be proud of this, but project management was right up there on the list. We had a whole chapter dedicated to us.
The problem children.
The problem children. And there were a few things they suggested. And one of the problems was and I quote, "There is no clear definition of the minimum standard of the PM services which a client could reasonably expect." And I think I would probably put in there maximum as well. So there is no clear definition of the maximum services standard of the PM services which a client could reasonably expect. So basically, when you order a project manager, some firms offer full services and some firms offer basic contract admin. And in the world that we work in, where we tender for things, if you just say, I want a PM, you're getting 2 people back and they're going to offer you quite different services. You're going to go with the cheapest, and the outcome may not be what you want. So we've been working together for quite a period of time now with NZIOB to develop this scope of services. Basically it's to put together some scope definition. Because as a project manager, you know that having a clear scope at the start of a project, it has been shown time and time again, clear scope reduces risk, both in terms of time and cost. And it was just a really big hole that project management services were not well defined. So the document was produced for a clear definition of roles and as a reference guide for all project stakeholders, which ensures consistency across the project. It also ensures consistency with the CIC design guidelines, so it can sit alongside those.
Awesome. Thanks, Sylvia. I should mention also, you'll see there's a Slido number on the screen. I'm sure a number of you will have questions as we step through the document. Please feel free to log into Slido. The number is there, 2035, which is sometime in the future when project managers rule the world, and then 209. So if you want to pop that number in, you can put in any questions you like, and we will get to them, preferably related to the scope of services. Right. Sonia, can you tell us a little bit more about the change in the world we're trying to affect here? What's the behavioural change? Who are the people that this document is aimed at?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, because the term project manager is used by everyone and anyone for a range of different activities. And unlike the architects and engineers that actually have a statute that says this is what you are to be one of those, there isn't one for a project manager. So we have a wide range. This is aimed at those that generally are referred to as either client-side project managers or consultant project managers. So the ones the client is employing is to manage their services. So predominantly we're seeing that this document will be used by clients, that the clients will pick this up. It'll give them a menu to select from in terms of what it is that they need someone to do. It may prompt them to realise that there's some things a PM can do that they didn't actually know about, and enable them, as Sylvia said, to have that consistency in what they're asking for when they then put an RFP out to the market. The same way that a project manager would do with consultants when they put together a CIC guideline-based scope for an architect or an engineer to respond to.
Great, thank you. And Sylvia, can you tell us, what's in it for me? How will I use this document, whether I'm a PM or a client?
So just continuing on from what Sonia said, really, one of the key uses will be during the procurement stage. So when you put out an RFP, you can include this with the checklist included. It'll be very standard, so people in the industry are familiar with it. It's quick to do. But then I would also encourage the consultants themselves to use it when putting a scope to a client, when it's a direct appoint or even when you're tendering. Because that also, again, it's very standardised, recognisable. It will be consistent with other offerings.
Yeah, and it can slip straight into the Appendix A of a CCCS contract. So if you've filled it in, then it can just become that scope that sits within your contract, rather than it being just used for RFPs or for responding.
Yes, which is totally brilliant. I was also going to say, in terms of how you actually use it, it is check boxes. So you go through and you check through the boxes. And one of the bits I really like is Appendix A, which is the meeting attendance. Now, often as a project manager, one of the areas of scope that gets a little bit niggly is the number of meetings that you're expected to attend, potentially chair and potentially minute. And those are not considered upfront. And these hours can really stack up and can cause quite an area of conflict between the consultant and the client, or the person paying the bills. So using that Appendix A, making it really clear what you will and will not do upfront is really useful.
Fantastic. So what I'm hearing is this is a great guideline to encourage trust and transparency in the way that our consultant project managers work, that this is about getting the client, contractor and the consultant literally on the same page. So with that little segue, we're going to share the screen of the document and do a little page turn. I'll just get that lined up. For those that might not have found it yet, it is on the nziob.org.nz website under resources. It will very shortly also be on the PMI website. They're just getting a flash new website, so we'll be watching that and letting you know any updates. So what you're looking at here is the contents page of the Consultant Project Manager Scope of Services document. What we wanted to let you know is a little bit more about the checklist area. So we've given you some background about why and how it's used. And then the project phases are very much, as has been indicated, in line with the NZIOB design guidelines, which many of you are familiar with. They go right through post-completion. There's a section on supplementary services where you can put your own information in. There's Sylvia's favourite Appendix A about agreed meeting protocol. We will just slide through to the construction section. You can see we're moving into a checklist. Please do look away if you get motion sickness. And then we land into the construction phase. So you can see here there's a number of checkboxes. Sylvia, Sonia, is there anything you would point out about this section?
Yeah, I would say obviously there's a lot of checklist items here. For very small projects of under 5 million or something, you will only be ticking some of these. Whereas for a very large project, say over 50 million or something like that, you'd be potentially needing more than what's listed here. Yeah. So it is available for all project sizes. It does need to be customized for your specific project.
Yeah, we certainly don't think that there's a one size fits all, and that's why the supplementary services that's just appearing is also there, because we know that we haven't got everything there. There will be different things that each project requires, because every project is a little bit unique. Otherwise they wouldn't need the project manager if it was actually the same as what they've done before.
So to the uninitiated like myself, what types of supplementary services might we see in there?
Ooh. That would require us to have remembered exactly what we've done in all the other sections.
Eat coffee and donuts at all key.
Yeah, it'll be something specialised that it's a highly technical project.
I think like we didn't include like a property negotiation or something like that if you needed to buy property or I don't know, there's loads of, each project is different, right?
Yeah, there might be some negotiation of agreements with tenants or something, or development, things that are kind of, because
niche.
The client-side project managers, everything from when the client's dreamed up an idea right through to when somebody moves in, and can even involve helping them move in. So often the supplementary services will be those services at either end of that process of life cycle where it's not on every project.
Got it. So there may be property related, but outside the usual, say, NZIOB guidelines phases. Okay, great. And here's the Appendix A. And Sylvia, you mentioned the importance of communication and setting meetings, and that the role of the project manager is largely one about creating agreed communication methods.
Yes, absolutely. So my favourite PMI stat from PMBOK is that project management is 80% communication. So although meetings may seem like the mundane bit of your job, they are the job. And so I think this is really important that we've got this in here. And I also think for comparing apples with apples, it's great to say who's coming to those meetings, because when I've evaluated tenders, often you're evaluating a group where everyone's going to come versus a group where it's only the project manager. So it just makes it really clear what your expectations are.
Correct. So we've given some indications of types of meetings for those that are particularly loving their meetings. We've got a space to put in some extra meetings.
Yeah,
There you
again, we haven't assumed that we've got everything there. We've got the bog standard site meeting, design team meeting, PCG. But there may be some other ones that are coming in, especially on some of the larger government projects. There's some interesting governance structures sometimes.
Yeah, and actually, there's also clients that are not familiar with running a project. So we have had, I have had a lot of experience of that where the client hasn't done a project like this before. So it's a good list of what you should have on a project. You know, your PCGs, your PSGs, your design team meetings, this kind of stuff. It's a good reminder of what's standard.
Right. And of course, again, for the uninitiated like myself, or those who come from slightly sideways parts of the built environment, there is a very handy glossary of terms, which can either be part of the document or just held separately as an additional appendix. So
Yeah, we found it was a good idea to put those in because a lot of words in the industry get used with dual meaning. So at least this glossary is explaining how we were using the words in there. And it may be that this is one of the areas that we get a lot of commentary back on during the feedback stage, that there'll be things that you think need to be added or different versions of the definitions potentially. But it was our big.
Because we're trying to make our clients' lives easier, and one way we can do that is by speaking in full words, not just three-letter acronyms. All right. Well, that's our very quick look at the scope of services document. I think what would be quite good just to touch on as we talk about how the document was created and updated. I know Sylvia's going to brief us on how it will be updated, but I wondered, Sonia, if you could tell us a little bit more about the types of source documents that we've drawn on, because I remember at one stage looking in the Dropbox and there was about 25 different documents from all around the world. And I should also mention, of course, that the Project Management Institute and the Institute of Building have been working on this for what feels like 12 to 18 months. But, has been project managed internally here at the Institute by Hannah Nancy. So that's been really great to have that level of oversight. But Sonia, what would you say about any of the precedent docs or why we had to add an Aotearoa lens to them?
Yeah, well, we started by sort of between ourselves and the various networks pulling in any document we could find that was a scope document, partly because we kind of hoped we might find something that we could just really easily adjust and edit and borrow. But actually what we found was there was nothing that was a gold standard starting point. And then the language used in the New Zealand industry is slightly different than the language used in other countries, and it is set by what the NZIOB has set down as the names and descriptors. So we needed to tailor it to that as well. But that initial sort of bringing together of lots of documents that we could read through and look at was probably very useful. It was one of the reasons it's taken so long to get to where we are, though, because it was a lot of docs, some of them from within New Zealand as well as internationally, but we did go as wide as we could.
Yes, we should very much thank the consultants in New Zealand that provided their documents. Yes. That was really, really kind. Obviously, they are documents that they use for tendering, so there's a degree of commercial sensitivity, but they provided them free of charge to us to do this document for the good of the industry. So thank you if that was you.
Yeah. Hopefully you're now happy with what we've produced.
Tell us a bit about how we'll know if people are happy. Sylvia, what's the commentary on how the document will be updated?
So now that we've produced it, we are going to move into a 6-month engagement period, which is when we hope everyone will start using the document and we'll see some feedback in terms of what's working and what's not. But although we have done the best job we can in putting it together, once it starts being used, there's bound to be some words that just don't work on a consistent basis, or some items that you think are missing or that you never use. So we would love to get some feedback on final tweaks and edits. And then after that, we will go into a 2-yearly cycle of re-releasing the document. And the reason it will need to be re-released is that stuff is continually evolving in our industry. So, for instance, we currently mention engineers of the contract, but now with the new 3910, there's new terms involved. I was thinking, we have BIM mentioned in the in the scope of services. That wouldn't have been in there 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So there's going to be new things that come in, so that the 2-yearly cycle is to pick up on those.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe in 2 years' time, we can just feed it into AI with a couple of updates and have it all spat out within minutes. Who knows?
Yeah, we promise we do that.
No AI was used in the production of the scope of services.
But actually it could be now.
Yeah,
When we started it wouldn't have worked, but now it probably would, yeah.
So yes, thanks to those that have had some part to play in contributing some of those original source documents. The real mahi starts now in terms of your feedback, your uptake, your use of it, talking with your clients about it. Definitely client feedback will be important. So it'll be really interesting to see how we can reach through our consultant contacts and get that client feedback as well. Please do send information through to info@nziob.org.nz, and we'll keep project managing that engagement period, as was mentioned, over the next 6 months. It is available for free, will always be for free, and it's currently, as you saw on that resources section of the Institute of Building's website, soon to be on the beautiful new PMI one. I guess the other things are, if people have any questions, they can pop them through Slido 2035 209. We don't have any questions at the moment because probably testament to the fact that after all that hard work, hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory. I guess, Sylvia and Sonia, is there anything else that you would say in terms of maybe even what next steps might look like if this scope of services is something that the industry says, yes, this is helpful, but what also about this other problem we're having over here? What other types of things do you anticipate, or do you think we might be going back to that improving New Zealand construction industry productivity report, or where else can the Project Management Institute and the Institute of Building, do you think, overlap in forwarding our members? Because as Sylvia said, there is a large contingency of their members that are construction project managers. Over 25% of our members are project managers, so it's clearly a growing area of interest, and we're really keen to create as much alignment around templates, tips and tricks going forward.
No, absolutely. We think there's fantastic alignment and we love working with you. One of the other major problems that was commented on in the construction productivity report is the fact that you can be a project that's completely unregulated.
Yep.
So the engineers, the architects, and the QSs all have chartership schemes, and you have to have a certain level of qualification. Whereas project managers, while we do come from often very diverse backgrounds, and a lot of us are professional project managers, there is no qualification to separate us out. Now, in PMI, we have addressed that. We have just released the new PMI construction professional qualification, and I'm very proud to be the 4th person in New Zealand to have gained that qualification. And there's actually also a senior one you can do as well, which once I've recovered, maybe I'll do that as well. It is really great. It's really hands-on. Anyone that's done the project management professional PMP, you'll find it much more close to the coal face. PMP is quite theoretical, the background of project management. This one is very much, you're on site, this happens, what do you do? So we've done that in PMI to create that kind of industry qualification. There are other issues with construction productivity, and I think that the current government is very passionate about addressing those as well. So I suspect there's going to be quite a lot of initiatives.
Yeah. Well, I guess the other one is actually I started my career in the mid-90s, and that was when project management was really just beginning and was coming out and being self-defined, and we're now at a point where we're hopefully helping to define it better. The new one is actually what my now job title is. So design management is the one that actually more and more people are now design managers. And again, it's not an officially defined job title or scope of services even. And what we all do is different. I mean, what I do as a design manager is strategic versus the technical design management that my teammates do here within my team. So there is a lot of question over that, and maybe that is something else that needs to be prompted. Maybe that's a collaboration with someone else. But it'll be interesting to see if that's what the industry wants.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Sonia, which is that, of course, project management, as we've talked about, has emerged in fairly recent history. I think, Sylvia, you mentioned the 40-year anniversary of the Institute of Building itself. Also last year celebrated 40 years. You know, there's obviously a large percentage of our membership. It's the largest role that is represented in our membership at over 25%. So that's that growing role of the project manager. But when I go into project management firms, they talk about taking people who have come out of engineering or architecture typically, and that they don't hire them based on their specific industry experience, but more on their emotional intelligence and their ability to be a great communicator. As you mentioned, 80% of the role is communication. So I think it'll be really interesting for our young people, our school leavers, and our changers inside the industry to show them where is the front door for that qual. As we've mentioned, Project Management Institute is a place to get skills and quals. The Institute of Building is a place to build your people network and your stakeholder engagement. So if you carry a bit of both going forward and have some tricks and tips and tools like this scope of services, then you should be all set. In terms of next steps, yes, design manager is an emerging role, and I hope that we can do what we can to clarify that. In terms of scope of services, then hopefully there'll be digital manager. I'm always hoping there'll be an innovation manager and more sustainability managers, but perhaps we can just keep going as these roles emerge and as commercial construction, as we acknowledge the complexity of delivering these large projects. What we might do is wrap up slightly early, unless you've got anything else you want to mention to folks about this particular document. I guess what we're saying here is watch this space. There will be more good work that happens between our organisations, and we will be making sure that the information and this document goes out through all our channels, and we're very interested in all your feedback to the info@nziob.org.nz email. Very interested in any conversations or client feedback you might have and can relay to us. So what I'll do now is thanks Sylvia and Sonia very much for being part of this conversation. Thanks also to Donna and Jonathan who weren't able to join us today, and all the lovely supporting folks in the background. For those that are regularly watching these industry insights deep dives, and this one will also end up on the resources page of the Institute of Building website. The next one we have is on Thursday, the 31st of October, same time, midday, and that is with Dave Kelly and Charlotte Downs from Registered Master Builders New Zealand. So Dave is the former CE there, who's now their advocacy person. So we will be talking very much around politics, policies and advocacy, and as we've just mentioned here, some of the changes we're seeing in the new government, which is now a year in, around their measures to improve productivity and make changes within the industry, which we are all reacting and responding to. So any kind of proactive heads up on those changes, I'm sure will be very useful for all of us. So we'll have that chat on the 31st of October. So thanks very much, Sylvia and Sonia. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone very much finds that scope of services useful, and we'll look forward to hearing from you about that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ka kite anō.
Bye.